All right, let's dive into a really powerful shift in thinking, one that moves us away from the pressure of performance and toward the connection of presence. We're going to explore how pleasure isn't something you have to achieve, but something you get to experience together.
This quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? So often we treat intimacy like we're on a stage, looking for applause at the end. But pleasure isn't a reward for a good performance. It's a shared experience that really only shows up when all that pressure is gone.
And you know what that pressure sounds like in our own heads, right? It's that nagging voice asking these questions. The second we start asking this, we turn a moment of connection into a test, and it pulls us right out of our bodies and straight into our own anxieties.
And that is exactly what we call the performance trap. The moment intimacy becomes about proving something, about getting it right, our attention completely shifts. We stop focusing on our partner, and we start focusing on our own internal report card. And honestly, that pressure is one of the fastest ways to kill a real connection. You can really see the difference laid out here. On one side, you've got the performance mindset. It's all about execution, getting the outcome. But look at the other side, the presence focus. It's about awareness, curiosity, and responsiveness. The goal isn't to execute some perfect routine anymore. It's just to stay genuinely, curiously connected to your partner in the moment. So the big question is, how do we actually make that shift? Well, it starts by understanding that desire is way more about context than it is about some magical chemistry. We're often sold this idea that desire should just appear, like flipping a switch, but the reality is so much more nuanced than that. See, desire doesn't just happen in a vacuum. I like to think of it like a garden. You can't just yell at a plant and force it to grow, right? But what you can do is create the right conditions for it to flourish. Things like emotional safety, low stress, feeling valued and seen. That's the good soil, the water, and the sunlight that allow desire to actually emerge on its own. And that leads to this huge shift in the question we ask ourselves. Instead of asking, how do I make this happen, which sounds like force and control, we can start asking, what conditions can we create together that allow desire to emerge? That simple reframe. It takes all the blame and pressure off and turns it into a collaborative, creative. So if creating the right context is the what, then paying close attention is the how. This is where we move beyond any kind of technique and into what we call responsive presence, which, let me tell you, is so much more powerful than any memorized script. A huge part of this is learning to read signals. Our bodies are talking all the time, even when we're not using words. A tiny change in breathing, a slight tensing of the shoulders, a subtle movement towards you or away from you, these are all real-time pieces of information. And if you're just following a plan in your head, you're going to miss every single one of them. This mindset also completely reframes what touch even is. Instead of it being an action to get a result, what if touch was a conversation? Each touch could ask a gentle question like, how does this feel? And then wait for a response. Can you feel how much safer, more respectful, and just deeply more engaging that is?
And all of this, every bit of it, is built on this foundation of presence. It just means your attention is fully here, right now, with this person. You're not running through a mental checklist, you're not grading your own performance, and you're not trying to figure out what comes next. It's in that uncluttered, open space of pure presence that pleasure finally has the room it needs to grow.
Okay, but let's be real for a second. All this talk about responding to signals might bring up a pretty common fear. Won't talking about things totally kill the mood? Well, we need to reframe that, because true confidence isn't about pretending you know everything. It's about being secure enough to ask.
Just let that sink in for a moment. The anxiety of guessing, of wondering if you're getting it right, that's what's actually disruptive. A simple, warm question doesn't break the connection. It's the very thing that strengthens it because it shows you care about your partner's actual, real experience. So let's completely redefine what confidence looks like in intimacy. The old model, this kind of dominance-based idea, is all about being certain, being in control. But true confidence, that's about stability and responsiveness. It's the quiet strength to adapt, to listen, and to actually be comfortable not having all the answers. Okay, so let's pull all these pieces together. How do we build a mindset for pleasure that's actually sustainable? Something that lasts? It's all about shifting our focus away from a series of pass-fail tests and toward a truly shared, collaborative process. This brings us to what might be the most powerful final shift.
Outcome thinking is always asking, did it work? Which immediately puts the whole experience under a microscope. But when you shift your focus to the shared experience, the question changes completely. It becomes, do we feel connected? And suddenly, the whole point isn't the result, but the quality of the connection itself.
So what does this look like in practice, over the long haul? The principles are pretty simple, even if they're not always easy. It's a commitment to keeping the conversation going, a willingness to check in on our assumptions, and learning to embrace the fact that we all change over time. That is how intimacy stays alive, and that's how it becomes truly resilient.
Ultimately, if there's one core idea to hold on to from all of this, it's this. Pleasure isn't a problem you have to solve or a technique you need to master. It's a conversation, a shared, evolving experience that grows right alongside the connection that you build together through attention, communication, and real care.